He was too small, too slow, too broken. In a world gasping for hope, one crooked-legged horse didn't just defy the odds. He carried a nation on his back. This isn't just the story of a racehorse. It's the story of how America found itself again, through him. When the Great Depression shattered homes, dreams, and futures, Seabiscuit emerged not as a champion, but as a symbol, a forgotten misfit who rose from rejection to become the most beloved horse in American history. Millions gathered around radios, newspapers, and racetracks, not just to see a race, but to witness resilience in motion. Because his victories weren't just his, they were ours. This is more than racing, more than sport. It's the tale of three broken men and a forgotten horse, each healing the other, of one epic showdown that stopped the nation, and a legacy that still echoes today. So saddle up, because this is the true, unforgettable story of Seabiscuit. In the shadows of the Great Depression, when America was broken, battered, and desperate for hope, a crooked-legged, undersized horse named Seabiscuit emerged from obscurity to become the most beloved sports hero of a generation. He was too small, too lazy, too awkward. Trainers dismissed him. Experts laughed. He didn't look the part, and he certainly didn't run like it in the beginning. He lost his first 17 races. Most thought he was nothing more than a joke in a world obsessed with perfect bloodlines and polished champions. But fate had other plans. Enter three unlikely men. Charles Howard, a wealthy automobile tycoon haunted by personal tragedy. Tom Smith, a silent, horse-whispering trainer who saw what others couldn't. And Red Pollard, a half-blind, beaten-down jockey with nowhere else to go. Together, they didn't just train a horse. They resurrected a forgotten spirit. Seabiscuit began winning. Again and again. His grit, his heart, and his wild, stubborn will lit a fire across the country. He wasn't just running races. He was racing for every underdog who ever lived. By the time he lined up against the mighty War Admiral in a match race for the ages, Seabiscuit was no longer just a horse. He was a symbol, a hope, a rebellion. And when the little horse who was never supposed to win won, America believed in miracles again. This is more than a racing story. This is Seabiscuit, the legend born from being overlooked. Three men, three shattered lives, one broken horse. When Charles Howard lost his only son in a tragic accident, the man who once sold the dream of automobiles to a growing America was left hollow. Wealthy, yes, but alone, searching for something that mattered again. Tom Smith, a quiet, weathered cowboy from a disappearing West, was nearly forgotten by a world speeding toward machines and noise. A horseman through and through, he believed in listening, not shouting. He saw things others couldn't, and when he first laid eyes on Seabiscuit, he didn't see a failed racehorse. He saw a soul worth saving. Then came Red Pollard, a scrappy, half-blind, down-on-his-luck jockey, abandoned by his own family and beaten by life. Drifting from one low-paying ride to another, Red was angry, alone, and nearly broken. But fate, wild and reckless as the wind, brought them together. What they created wasn't just a racing team, it was a healing force. In Seabiscuit, they didn't just find a horse. They found a mirror of themselves, scarred, underestimated, dismissed. Together, they built him up, and in doing so, rebuilt each other. They trained in silence, worked with trust, and fought off the whispers that said they'd never make it. And in every gallop, every finish line crossed, every cheer from the crowd, these broken men became whole again. Because sometimes it takes a damaged soul to awaken greatness. And Seabiscuit, against all odds, gave them that chance. November 1st, 1938. Pimlico Racecourse. Silence. Then thunder. It wasn't just a horse race. It was a clash of titans. A moment where America held its breath. On one side, War Admiral, a towering Triple Crown winner. Elegant, fearsome, the East Coast elite's prize. He was bred for perfection. A machine on hooves, undefeated in his last 11 races. On the other, Seabiscuit. Short, scrappy, scarred. A horse that had been laughed at, overlooked, and underestimated his entire life. But now, he carried the hopes of underdogs everywhere, of factory workers, farmers, dreamers. He was the people's champion. The media called it East versus West, Goliath versus David. And 40 million people tuned in to listen. That's nearly 1 in 3 Americans, glued to radios across cities and prairies alike. From the moment the gates flew open, it wasn't just a race, it was war on 4 legs. Seabiscuit didn't just keep up, he toyed with the champion. Then, as they hit the final stretch, jockey George Wolfe gave him the nod, and Seabiscuit flew. In one of the most iconic upsets in sports history, he beat War Admiral by 4 lengths. The cheers were deafening. A horse once discarded had just humbled a legend. And in that moment, Seabiscuit became more than a racer. He became a symbol of hope, proof that heart can conquer heritage and that greatness doesn't always look the way you expect. In 2003, the legend galloped back, this time not on the track, but on the silver screen. Seabiscuit wasn't just a film. It was a resurrection, the true story of a crooked-legged horse, a blind in one eye jockey, a silent trainer, and a grieving millionaire. And when Universal Pictures brought it to life, they didn't just make a movie, they lit a fire in America's soul all over again. Directed by Gary Ross and based on Laura Hillenbrand's best-selling biography, Seabiscuit was a masterstroke of storytelling. Tobey Maguire as the resilient jockey Red Pollard, Jeff Bridges as the visionary owner Charles Howard, and Chris Cooper as the quiet genius trainer Tom Smith. All delivered unforgettable performances that breathed life into one of history's most inspiring sports sagas. And it wasn't just critics who noticed. The film earned 7 Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Cinematography. Audiences around the world were swept up in its emotionally charged race sequences, stunning Depression-era set designs, and an underdog tale that felt painfully real and endlessly uplifting. Seabiscuit galloped into theaters and across hearts, grossing over $148.3 million worldwide. But more than money or awards, the film accomplished something greater. It reminded us that true greatness often rises not from perfection, but from perseverance, pain, and pure heart. Seabiscuit wasn't just a champion of his time. Thanks to Hollywood, he became timeless. When Seabiscuit thundered into theaters in 2003, it wasn't just a horse racing film, it was a cinematic triumph, a story so powerful, so achingly human, that it didn't just win hearts, it demanded recognition from the highest stage in film. And the Academy listened. Seabiscuit earned 7 Oscar nominations, a rare feat for a sports drama, and a resounding tribute to its emotional weight and artistic brilliance. Among the nods, Best Picture, standing tall beside the year's finest films, Best Adapted Screenplay for Laura Hillenbrand's gripping true story, transformed into a soul-stirring script by Gary Ross. Best Cinematography, capturing golden dust rising from thundering hooves, Depression-era America painted with aching beauty. Add to that, Best Art Direction, Best Costume Design, Best Editing, and Best Sound Mixing. Each category a testament to the film's craft and precision. Every frame of Seabiscuit was meticulously shaped to honor the legacy of a horse who refused to be counted out, and the broken men who rebuilt themselves beside him. While it didn't take home the golden statues, Seabiscuit's Oscar journey proved something bigger than trophies, that Underdog stories still have the power to shake Hollywood to its core. It reminded the world that greatness isn't about flash or fame. It's about heart. And in that arena, Seabiscuit was a champion. When Seabiscuit galloped into theaters, no one expected a period drama about a battered little racehorse to ignite a global wave of emotion and box office gold. But it did, to the tune of $148.3 million worldwide. At a time when superhero blockbusters and action thrillers ruled the box office, Seabiscuit stood out like the underdog it portrayed. A historical sports drama, slow-burning and rich with heart, yet it galloped past expectations, grossing over $120 million domestically and nearly $28 million internationally. What made it so powerful? It was more than racing. It was the human story, the tale of a country in pain during the Great Depression, and a small, underestimated horse that reminded everyone what hope looked like. Audiences didn't just watch Seabiscuit. They felt it, they cheered, they cried, they returned. Backed by unforgettable performances from Tobey Maguire, Jeff Bridges, and Chris Cooper, and fueled by word of mouth and critical acclaim, Seabiscuit became a rare phenomenon. A sports movie that crossed generations, genres, and borders. It didn't rely on explosions or franchises. It relied on something stronger: resilience, heart, and the eternal thrill of the comeback. In the end, Seabiscuit didn't just win races on screen. It won the race to the hearts of millions, and the numbers proved it. What if we told you the most unbelievable parts of Seabiscuit were actually true? That's the magic of Seabiscuit, a movie that didn't need to invent drama because history had already written the perfect script. Yes, Seabiscuit really was small, knobby-kneed, and overlooked. Yes, he was trained by a quiet horse whisperer, ridden by a half-blind jockey, and owned by a grieving millionaire trying to rebuild his life. It sounds like Hollywood fantasy, but it's all real. The film's portrayal of the Great Depression wasn't just cinematic backdrop, it was the emotional core. Americans, beaten down by economic ruin, found a reflection of themselves in this little horse with an underdog heart. Every win he had felt like a win for the people. And the 1938 match race? It happened. Seabiscuit versus War Admiral. East versus West. Power versus heart. It wasn't just a race. It was the most watched sporting event in American history at the time, broadcast coast to coast on radio and listened to by tens of millions. Of course, the film took minor liberties, condensing timelines, tweaking conversations, but the soul of the story is untouched. The triumphs, the injuries, the doubts, the comeback, all real. In an age of exaggerated blockbusters, Seabiscuit stands as proof that truth still moves us the most. Because sometimes the greatest stories aren't written in Hollywood. They're raced into history. When America hit rock bottom, a small, scrappy racehorse gave the nation something priceless: hope. Seabiscuit wasn't just a champion, he was a symbol. During the Great Depression, when breadlines grew longer and futures looked bleak, Americans needed more than food. They needed faith. And somehow, in the pounding hooves of a horse once dismissed as a joke, they found it. Seabiscuit was imperfect, underestimated, and ignored, just like the people cheering him on. But every time he thundered down a racetrack, beating sleek, pedigreed rivals, he sent a message across the country. You can rise, no matter how far you've fallen. This wasn't just sport, it was personal. Families gathered around radios, clutching each other as announcers shouted his name. Factories paused production. Streets went silent. A horse was doing the impossible, and he was doing it for them. In a time when banks were failing and spirits were crumbling, Seabiscuit wasn't just winning races. He was restoring belief. Belief that grit mattered more than glamour, that broken things could heal. That courage wasn't about size, it was about heart. He wasn't royalty. He wasn't bred for greatness. He was one of us. And in becoming a champion, Seabiscuit didn't just lift a nation's spirits, he became its voice. Decades may have passed, but Seabiscuit's thundering spirit still echoes, in books, in films, and in the hearts of millions. More than just a racehorse, Seabiscuit became a symbol of resilience, a living testament to the power of second chances. His story didn't fade at the finish line. It lives on, riding strong in pop culture, sports history, and everyday lives. Laura Hillenbrand's best-selling biography, Seabiscuit, an American Legend, reignited interest in the forgotten champion, reminding readers that legends aren't born, they're made, forged in fire and failure. And when the story hit Hollywood in 2003, a new generation witnessed his greatness. The film didn't just win awards, it won hearts. From museum exhibits to motivational speeches, Seabiscuit is everywhere. His statue stands tall in the Racing Hall of Fame. Schools teach his tale, coaches cite him. Even business leaders use his story to inspire teams. If Seabiscuit could beat the odds, so can you. He represents the underdog who refuses to stay down. The broken spirit that dares to heal. The race no one thought you could win, but you run it anyway. In a world still full of doubt, fear, and setbacks, Seabiscuit's legacy reminds us you don't need perfect beginnings to achieve unforgettable endings, because even today, on every racetrack, in every struggle, and inside every dreamer, Seabiscuit still runs. In the grand arena of American history, few names stir the soul quite like Seabiscuit. He was never meant to be great. Crooked legs, undersized, overlooked, passed over by every expert. But in the deepest shadows of the Great Depression, when America itself was broken, one horse dared to rise, and the nation rose with him. Seabiscuit didn't just race. He carried on his back the hopes of a generation battered by poverty and loss. Every gallop, every finish line was more than sport. It was redemption. It was the idea that no matter how far you fall, no matter what odds are stacked against you, you can still fly. Across newspapers and radios, through cities and farms, millions stopped everything to follow his journey. He wasn't just a horse, he was every man and woman who'd been knocked down, yet refused to stay there. With each victory, he didn't just rewrite racing history. He reshaped American identity. He proved that heroes come in unlikely forms, that courage wears many coats, even dusty chestnut. And when he crossed the final finish line, Seabiscuit left behind more than trophies. He left a legacy, one horse, one nation, one enduring truth. Greatness isn't born in perfection. It's born in the will to keep running. And because of Seabiscuit, America never forgot how to run.